Friends, good afternoon. Tony Pellegrini here for Teaching and Learning at Southern Utah University. We are starting the 2020-2021 series of podcasts that we are starting with. We're starting with an old friend, not even going to say former, but she's not old, but she's not even former friend. She's a friend, Laura Davis. Laura Davis is going to give us a moment or two and tell us a little about her, a little bit of an introduction, introduce herself to us. So Laura, let me turn some time over to you to introduce yourself. Would you be willing to?
Sure.
Thank you so very much. Go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Laura June Davis. I'm an assistant professor of history here at SUU, and I also supervise our secondary ed students in history and social studies, and I am the co-director of women and gender studies. So I wear a lot of hats, and I teach a lot of things related to gender history, military history, 19th century US history, and all that.
That is a lot. That is a lot, and students love her. I am very, very comfortable with students sharing with me their love and appreciation for Laura and her approaches. Well, Laura was a guest a year or two ago, but has agreed to come back to us. We are trying to honor faculty who have received awards and honors from our provost's office, and Laura has received a recent award, and we want to honor her for that by grilling her with some great questions. Does that sound okay, Laura?
Yeah, yeah, I was
I am
very
so grateful for that.
honored to get the award. So
That's wonderful. Tell us a little, and I apologize, I don't have it right here on the tip of my tongue. Tell us a little about the award you received.
I was one of the 3 Distinguished Educator Awards. So I was recognized for excellence in teaching at the university level, which as still a relatively junior faculty member was a very nice honor to be recognized for the hard work and the innovation that I bring to my teaching and my pedagogy.
Well, and it's easy it's easy to see with your enthusiasm, your excitement for your learners, how that came about. Let me pose to you a couple of questions and share your thoughts or feelings with us. As faculty members, even junior faculty members, we do want junior faculty to contribute to our to each department's knowledge base. What are some of the great things that you do to contribute to your department's knowledge base there in history?
Well, I think one of my biggest strengths is the fact that I wear several hats, in the department, and so I at times bring an interdisciplinary approach to the study of history. Because I am also a women and gender scholar as well. And so since my strengths and areas of specialty are in gender and military history, I'm often looking at American history from different perspectives and trying to bring different stories to the forefront. So it's not just the same story over and over again, but we're looking at the impacts of various historical events on all types of people, regardless of their class, rank, status, race, or gender. So I do try to bring a lot of diverse perspectives and make my curriculum overall more inclusive. And as a scholar of the American Civil War and 19th century, I try really hard to stay up to date on current trends, where the field is going, and bring those perspectives into my classroom. So for example, I finally get to teach the history of Civil War and Reconstruction. It's a brand new class and we just got added to the curriculum, History 3750. And my students are reading 3 historical monographs that all came out in the last year. And so they're reading brand new scholarship and getting exposed to the ideas about where Civil War history really is in the field right now.
That is very, very strong. One of the things that you mentioned that I was curious about was your perspective regarding that is interdisciplinary nature here at SUU. Are you comfortable with the size of the institution and the ability that you have to dip your toe in other waters, to look at how other people see things and understand things, and have you felt comfortable with the opportunity to engage interdisciplinarily, if there's such a word, with your peers on campus?
Yes, I think so. The fact that I was added on as kind of a co-coordinator for women and gender studies, I think it was my second year here, really helped with that. And I've been working hard as a co-coordinator to get more and more curriculum added to the minor. And so I think we've got over 20 classes now. We've got classes in um, the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, in business, in science, and in education and family and human life development. And so that's been one of the great ways that I've been able to connect with my colleagues in many different disciplines, is reaching out to them, seeing the courses that they're working on, inviting them to come speak to our students. And then I was able to take advantage of one of the initiatives that the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning did a couple years ago to co-develop a class with a biologist. We're actually going to teach it next spring. It's a dual credit general education class. And I'm forgetting the call number. It's under the SUU call number, but it's called Western Women and Medicine. And so we're going to look at history and biology as it relates to women and kind of flip American history and Western history on its head to look at how time periods relate to women, and also look at how women have contributed to medical history and science, as well as look at biological health and science as it specifically relates to women and women's bodies. And so I don't know if that opportunity to co-teach a class with someone who's not only out of my department, but out of my college would have been possible at a different school. I think that's an advantage to a smaller regional school like SUU, is that you get these opportunities and you get to really know faculty outside of your department and even outside of your college.
Well, I think that's wonderful, and understand, feel your passion and understand the passion of others with their content as well. I love the metaphor you used just a moment or two ago about flipping content on its head. Leads me to a question regarding how you connect your lessons, with your background and expertise in the Civil War to the real world. Can we learn? Can we flip that? And can we learn from 200-year-old letters and information from the Civil War about how maybe our military or women are interacting in our world today?
Yes. I was actually recently interviewed for another podcast called Sea Control, where we were looking at some of the lessons of the Naval War, especially as it related to the campaign of Vicksburg in the summer of 1863 in the Civil War, and kind of the lessons that the Army and Navy were using to do joint operations. And some of those lessons still hold true today. I think I've been kind of lucky as a Civil War scholar, is that there's a lot of things related to Civil War history that are in the news lately, especially as it relates to history and memory and statues and commemoration. And so for a lot of people, they're starting to realize that the legacy of the Civil War is still very much felt today. And then one of the recent things I've started literally just this semester is to really relate to my students the lasting impact of historical events on our modern day society. And so I've taken various news articles or ideas that have happened and popped up in the last year, and I'm connecting them to our topics in class and our readings in class, and having the students write reflections on it. So for example, this week they're reading a speech from the 17th century. It's called the Arabella Sermon. It was given to a bunch of Puritans as they're aboard the Arabella ship before they're getting ready to step off into the New World. And it lays out this cornerstone idea that's been really important in American history, this kind of metaphor of us being a city on a hill, that we're going to be a shining example and shining light for the rest of the country and the rest of the world about what a good, productive society looks like. And this is a metaphor that has been used by politicians throughout the 20th century. But over the summer, somebody did a survey to ask the Americans, do we still see ourselves as a city on a hill? It's kind of a shining example for the rest of the world. And the survey said that most Americans no longer think that. And so I just thought it was interesting that this topic that we study every semester in History 1700 was, again, making current news. So my students are going to hear about that survey and then write a reflection about what do they think. And so that's one of the key assignments I've added this semester, is to make these connections between past events. to the present day. But I think we can't really understand, modern day events, modern day symbolism and metaphors, as well as modern day race relations or gender relations, if we don't understand where we came from and how and why these things have changed, or maybe why they haven't changed.
Well, I think, your perspective regarding, what's going on in our society here in the United States, even this summer, with whether they be statues or names of bridges named after, generals from the Civil War, and the challenges that our students are having to deal with these real world applications. How, again, what are some of the ways that you use real world applications within your assignments and activities? What can some of your students expect?
So, the Confederate monument debate has been, especially poignant since this last summer, but it's been a topic over the last couple of years. And so in my 19th century class, I've had students debate, what we should do about Confederate monuments, or research how different communities have responded to the monuments. We've also done a lot of talking about how and when those monuments went up, because that's something that not a lot of people realize, is that most of those Confederate monuments didn't go up in the 1860s or 1870s during, the immediate Civil War era or Reconstruction. They went up much later in the 1890s, 1910s, and kind of in direct response to what's going on in Jim Crow America. And so these monuments have a specific meaning about, that's kind of supporting a pro-Jim Crow, a pro-white supremacist message, because of when they go up. And so I have my students talk about that. They often read the dedication speeches, so they understand how and when those monuments are going up. I think some other real world applications and assignments that I give to my students, I really emphasize a lot of writing and critical thinking, because I think that serves you well no matter what your major is. And those are key component parts to the study and practice of history. In several of my classes, I have students write 25-word abstracts. So they have to distill down an argument from a primary source into 25 words. And I think that's a really important real-world skill to learn, because we're all going to have to learn how to communicate efficiently and clearly, regardless of our job. You might only get 5 minutes in an elevator with your boss or your CEO, and you have to convey, the importance of this research project that you're working on, or why you might need a raise. And so I think being able to develop clear communication skills is really important. In several of my classes, not just my social studies education classes, I have students who are in the education program craft lesson plans. So that way they are literally developing tools that they will use in their future career as teachers. So in my, I call it the American Slavery class, but it's History 3620. My students have the option of either writing an essay or doing lesson plans and developing lesson plans about American slavery that they could then use in their future classrooms.
Powerful.
Those are, yeah.
Thank you so much. Let me ask a question maybe for other faculty that are not teaching history, but are teaching and want to become better teachers here at SUU. What are some of the things that you do to check your students' understanding, that they really are connecting with and understanding the concepts that you are teaching? What are some of the tools that you use or approaches you use to help?
I always try to have a blend of kind of low stakes assignments and high stakes assignments, and a blend of the types of things that I'm asking my students to do. So there might be quizzes or conventional exams, but then, in my lower level classes, there's usually practical hands-on assignments, kind of weekly activities to have them specifically engage in our readings and our primary sources, trying to at times even get them to be creative. So when we're looking at the colonial era, which I'm doing right now, they have to create a marketing campaign for their colony to kind of explain what was the unique features and facets of that colony. And so I think tapping into their creative side helps them. I have students do a lot of kind of reflection, so kind of, thinking through writing, and reflecting on what they're learning in that week, how they're piecing together the various reading assignments that we have, or our various lecture activities. I at times use just kind of quick polls, like Poll Everywhere, to get kind of some quick feedback from my students to see what they're thinking or feeling. I also tend to use that on the first day. It's a great way to kind of get to know your students. And then my upper division classes, they do a lot of writing and research, but they don't necessarily do research papers. Sometimes I have them do various kind of research activities. So they're developing research skills in kind of some unique ways. So in one class, they actually go into special collections. They look at some primary sources, which are some old legal court case records, and they have to pick 5 cases, transcribe the document, annotate it, and then explain how they're all connected. And so I think it's really important when we're checking for understanding that we do a variety of different assignments for our students to help engage them, but also it allows you to kind of engage their understanding at different levels and at different times throughout the semester.
Fantastic. I want to kind of stay on this same theme of help or support for other faculty here at SUU. Listening to you talk about your learners and the opportunities to engage with them, I can absolutely sense your passion and your wonderful inquisitive nature. Certainly in history, you have no reluctant learners, but if 1 or 2 were to come across your path, what would you do, or how would you share to other faculty here on campus, things that you might do to pull in or to hook those reluctant learners that may come across your path?
I think it's, and I do think I might have some reluctant learners in some of my general education classes. I think it's, one key thing is to share your passion and enthusiasm. If they see that you're excited and passionate about what you're teaching, they're more apt to, I think, to be passionate and exciting. I think you hook them in with the things that are unique and interesting about your discipline. People say history is boring, but history is all about stories. And so I try to sometimes find really interesting stories to share with them. So when we're talking about the Gilded Age, I talk about the famous serial killer H.H. Holmes, which everybody finds really interesting. But then we can connect his story and the reason he becomes a serial killer with what's going on in that time period. So that helps. I think bringing in new interpretations or perspectives that are in your field. So maybe where the new trends are in your specific discipline. A lot of times I'm bringing in history from different perspectives than my students are used to, or maybe sharing different stories about the American past that they're not familiar with. And so I think that helps. And so they realize it's not the same old in your discipline, that there are new interpretations, new perspectives, new ways to think about things that really challenge students. And I think that's a great way to kind of hook them in. And then using, obviously, different approaches to how you teach material. So I often like to bring in a lot of visuals that can help them. Whether those are video clips, or obviously in history, we might do a lot of timelines. But I also use a lot of kind of content maps, so we can kind of map out how different events relate to one another, and they can build those connections. And I think that helps hook students, especially some of my students who might be more STEM focused, because we can almost kind of build a process or a visual kind of cause and effect relationship that really speaks to them.
Wonderful. Just one last question for you. Both President Wyatt and Provost Anderson shared their perspective of wanting to engage diversity within our institution and encourage that. Can you talk to us about some of the ways that you demonstrate respect and concern for your learners, maybe even particularly the diverse learners that you find in your classrooms?
Yes. I think one of the key ways, especially to respect our diverse student population, is to make sure that we're including diverse perspectives in our teaching. So I make sure that when we're talking about American history, we don't just talk about one specific type of person, but we're looking at a variety of people and understanding how the same event might impact people dramatically differently depending on their race, their gender, their identity, their class, their rank. I also make sure that my students are reading diverse authors, again, so making sure that there's minority authors, that there's female authors that they're reading. So I think that helps show respect to them. And in terms of like diverse learners, I think trying to make sure that we offer students the opportunities to learn through a variety of methods, because some students are going to be stronger writers, some students are going to be stronger, communicators through verbal skills. Some of them might be more artistic. So if we can offer them different opportunities to share their knowledge, that helps. I try to always talk to my students about what they're interested in. So often in my upper division classes, I'm like, what about this time period do you want to learn about? And I make sure that if it's not already in my lesson plans, that we add that material in, because then I can engage in what they're interested in and passionate about, and making sure that their diverse interests are being met. And then just in terms of diverse, abilities or capabilities, I try to make sure that I'm reaching out to all of my students. So usually after the first or second exam, I do a check-in with the students who maybe aren't doing as well, and offering them tips and study strategies, and asking them to kind of meet with me one-on-one, so we can figure out where they're struggling and how I can help them. And one of the questions I always ask them is, what class are you doing really well in? Because I can figure out how they're studying and learning in that class, and then how to apply it to history. But I also always take time to reach out to my students who are really excelling as well, and just be like, just a quick note, like, you're doing awesome and you should be really proud of yourself. And I want you to understand that I recognize the hard work that you're putting in. And I find that those students are really appreciative that someone takes that time to recognize their successes as well.
It all comes down to relationships, doesn't it, Laura?
It really does. It really does.
It really does. Thank you so very much, Laura. Thank you for being willing to share with us. Thank you for the tips and tricks and approaches that you made, friends. I would encourage you to reach out to Laura. She's very open to having you come and visit her class, her settings and situations, to be able to see some of her work in progress. Laura, thank you so very much, and I hope we get to do this again in the near future, okay?
Okay.
Hey, you have a great day, and one and all, have a great semester here this fall, even with your masks on. Make it a good one. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.